Hey guys. So today, most of you guys will probably be watching this after the stream I'm doing because I'm getting on a little bit later. But recently, it's been a really green day in the market. Like things have really rebounded. Pretty much everything's up. You know, at least to the USD value. There's several in the double digits. So just overall, a real green day. 10x status. Monaco, so some smaller coins. Power Ledger was one that I got into for quite a while. The 0x, continuing, like this is one I'm still really, have been pretty interested in. So I'm liking some of the activity in the market, and so that's been kind of good to see. If we're looking, like I just saw, like Tone Days is live right now. I thought it was interesting. He's calling it the dead cat bounce. So perhaps, a little bit of like, there was, I think, the way I'm interpreting that just by looking at that is there was a little bit of consolidation in crypto just overall, maybe here towards the end of the month or whatnot. And we're seeing a little bit of like a resurgence back, maybe another, look at this, it was like the market cap's at, 56. So about 20 billion kind of came into the market. So I think that, the way I'm interpreting that is just like a little bit of a plateau or a jump, and it's just kind of needed. But the dead cat bounce, essentially, maybe this is just going to stagnate, at this at these levels right now. So I haven't been doing a whole lot of getting into and out of crypto, and that's something I kind of like to look into a little bit more. There has been some legality issues about that, like how they're going to regulate it, how they're going to kind of monitor some of this activity. And that kind of brings me into the topic of what I'm going to be talking about is just kind of like, the current regulations and whatnot that we're seeing, with Bitcoin overall. And I think it's important to kind of take a look at history. So this article came out like 5 hours ago, and I thought it was really interesting. So essentially on the 28th, the U.S. Supreme Court revealed that it would not reevaluate the Ross Ulbricht case. So he got a double life sentence for basically operating a website. So here there was 200 cases that day, and there was only two, I guess. Well, the court justices denied all of them, except for the Carpenter versus U.S. case and the Ulbricht petition. And so the Carpenter case is actually a really interesting one. So this was the where law enforcement cannot access cell phone information without a warrant. They essentially put that into the Bill of Rights, and that was Carter versus the U.S. So that's the case that the Supreme Court, heard, and that's how they ruled on that. And then they also had the Ross Ulbricht case. Now the Ross Ulbricht case is kind of an interesting one, and of course he's known for running the Silk Road. But many believe, alongside, these, family and attorneys, that Ulbricht's Fourth Amendment and other amendment rights were taken from him. So he essentially got a double life sentence for operating a website. It's pretty, it's considered extremely harsh, if you're looking at the kind of the criminal justice in America, to get, two double life sentences for operating a website. He was essentially the fall guy. There was other people that were involved with the running of the website. He was just happened to be the one that got caught, and the reason he got caught was really due to violation of his Fourth Amendment rights, which is unreasonable search and seizure. So this is the bill, the right of the people to have secure in their possessions, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. So, his rights were clearly violated. Like, it's like not even close. It's not even debated. It's, he had all of that taken away from him. And that was how they were able to conjure up some of the information that was going on about this case. And that information was used against him to essentially give him a unreasonable sentence for running a website. I think this is just there was some interesting, other tidbits in this article. I think people are going to have some different opinions on a case of this magnitude. they may disagree with perhaps what he was doing. I just this is an interesting one for me. And for those of you guys that have been watching me, I think it was on the 25th. I was looking back on my videos. On the 25th, I was basically giving some of my reflections with my ayahuasca experience. I had no idea or concept of like what was going on with this case. I wasn't doing any forms of like research or anything like that. 3 days later, the U.S. Supreme Court like ruled on it, and this was essentially the biggest kind of decision in terms of like how the U.S. Supreme Court is going to rule this. I mean, his options at this point are very, very slim. There's basically, I think, there's only like he would need a presidential pardon, or I think there was one other potential for him to not have to serve a double life sentence, in this manner. So these types of cases are really kind of an example of just how much of our government has been kind of a runaway in terms of, really violating people's rights to the point where, they are just manifesting this prison industrial complex, war machine that is, unwelcome in a lot of parts of the world. So, Ross Ulbricht was a guy that was, if you look back in some of like the history of, his involvement with that website, there were illicit drugs that were being sold on there using Bitcoin. This is one of the earliest adoptions and use cases for Bitcoin was to operate on the Silk Road, and this was back, way back, in the days. And so it took a lot of kind of that negative impressions, and there was at that time it was a little bit more difficult than it is to track some of that stuff now. So unfortunately, I mean, they basically just used the information to tag him to the website and pretty much put him as the fall guy. Like, I don't know of anyone else that was associated with the Silk Road website that had, any involvement with, in terms of having to do serve some like time legally or whatnot. So it seems like a very unjust case that one guy is serving a double life sentence for something that was like a worldwide phenomenon. This was something that gave, in a lot of ways, people freedom of choice. Like if drugs is kind of more of like a personal thing. Like, in my personal opinion is that, drugs should be legalized. It shouldn't be something that the government should be put in a position to monitor. A lot of the reasons why the drug companies were, or drugs were basically, made illegal is because of the drug companies, the pharmaceutical interests. This is something that's just been recent in the last, 50 years. And so some of like the medications and things that I've been getting into are treatments and medicines have been used for thousands of years. And those are typically the types of medicines that those are probably the only types of medicines I prefer to put in my body, and nothing that would be synthetic that is coming from a pharmaceutical company. Even, to the extent of like artificial sweeteners and a lot of the stuff that's been put into the food and whatnot. It's just, it seems to me just, it's another reason why I just had a strong desire not really to be in the U.S. and why I've decided to move out of the U.S. is, in a lot of ways, just kind of like an unjust runaway legal system. I played athletics for a long time. I ended up, playing football. For those of you guys that are, not following my stream, as much. So I have, a lot of friends that I've kind of met over the years, and a lot of them post, quite a bit about some of the injustices and whatnot that they're seeing in the legal system. So there's a lot of ways to kind of interpret that, especially in the U.S. As far as I know, Ross Ulbricht was in the U.S., at the time that he was detained. I believe it was in California, somewhere in the San Francisco area. I think it's an important, note in history that somebody that was kind of, in a lot of ways, very libertarian in terms of, less government and, more freedom, and somebody who built a website that was kind of built on those premises and was using cryptocurrency as a way to facilitate it. I mean, he was, however you want to, label him or look at him, he was one of the first pioneers in the space. And, he didn't do it by himself. He had a lot of help. So how do you bring all of the legal consequences of one singular operation and put it as on the shoulders of one guy as the fall guy with a double life sentence for running the website based on information that was obtained and a clear violation of Ross Ulbricht's Fourth Amendment rights. So his rights were violated, and the information was used against him to put him away so that he will never touch another computer again. So if that's not a violation of the First Amendment of like freedom of speech, I don't know what is. I mean, that seemed to be an extremely harsh sentence for, a case of this magnitude. These are the types of cases that I kind of look at, from an injustice standpoint that really stick with me and wonder, what is possible if you get involved in something with cryptocurrency and, the government doesn't like what you're doing. And they're going to have different methods and ways to stop what you're doing. And I guess, one of the biggest mistakes that Ross Ulbricht probably made was operating out of the US. This might have been a different story if he was not in the US. You wouldn't maybe have the same, violation of rights had he not been in the US. It's probably most likely that he would have not been, unreasonably searched in another country where they would have, basically used force to confiscate all of his belongings and, and use the information on that against him. So that's kind of a rough overview of it. I put the article in the description below so you guys can check it out. I'm interested to hear kind of some of your guys' thoughts, but that was just kind of what was on my mind today and what I just felt like ranting about. Check in with the chat a little bit. In law, there must be the victim. Who was the victim? It's a good point. I mean, I guess they're saying all the people that were victims were the people that were purchasing using Bitcoin on that website. So I guess in this case, the victim is potentially the government because it was unregulated. I'm thinking maybe that's how it was determined legally. I'm not a lawyer, but I like thinking like a lawyer, and I've had a lot of friends that are in the legal field, so it's interesting to kind of hear their perspectives on things and how they think and how they would interpret a situation legally. Yeah, what are your thoughts on being forced to vaccinate yourself if you work in a hospital? Yeah, I'm very anti-vaccine. I I have some pretty strong viewpoints about that. I'm probably not going to get a whole lot into that here because it can be like a taboo political subject. Typically, if you're talking about the political things, like you're going to run into situations where people are not going to be open to changing their frame of thinking, because it's maybe something that it's just their beliefs. So you're not going to change what they believe, so it just becomes an emotional conversation, and it's not really a productive one. But yeah, a victim must be a man, not a corporation. In the U.S. is a corporation with bonds and insurance. Most justice systems around the world are corrupt. Some are just fairer or corrupt than others. Title 18 conspiracy agents' rights in his defense. I'll have to look into that. Everybody in the US is only one lie away from jail time. Anybody can lie and accuse someone and get arrested. Life will be ruined, even if found not guilty. Yeah, it's something I don't trust, so I just choose to stay away. I think that's the best way to deal with it, is just not get involved. So hopefully I've accomplished that, moving here. I'll tell you one thing I'm not accomplished at is watering plants. I want to show this to you guys. I am killing this damn plant. I put it out here. I'm gonna try to water it some more. I have had this thing like 2 months or so, I guess, since I've been here. 2 months. I'm already, like, this thing was a fresh looking plant, when I first got it. Now it's fucking dead. I think I'm gonna go for a swim. It's a nice day. But, well, that's my ranting on Ross Ulbricht. It was something that, I thought was really interesting, in how it came to me in my my ayahuasca journey, and came into my kind of consciousness not soon after the Supreme Court ruled on it. I had no knowledge of it or whatnot. It was just seemed to be just maybe in the collective consciousness of what was going on. But I think it's, a very important history lesson. It's an important thing to understand as to, what can happen in certain countries. The U.S. has one way of looking at certain things. There's been other news, like it seems to be much more severe in Australia, perhaps more severe in India. I've got a friend of mine that's going to, I think I mentioned this, she's going to Mumbai, India for a gig there. And India was named, like in this article, I'd have to find it, but it was like the #1 most dangerous place in the world for India, which I thought was really interesting. But really the reason the article got so much attention was because the US was 10th. Like, they're basically very high up on the list, and there was a lot of reasons for that, which were completely different than what you see in India. So a lot of the countries that ranked really high on that list were in the Middle East. So there was, like Syria was way up there. Iran, I believe, was way up there. So there are certain countries that are gonna be more dangerous for women than others. And, I've been kind of dealing a little bit with that, with cryptocurrency as well. Like how is this going to be interpreted in some of these other countries? Like India seems to be very, very strict with certain things that are going on in the crypto space. I don't know enough about it. I know there's a lot of YouTubers. It's a huge market that I'm interested in exploring. I actually was reaching out to my my friends at Millennium and talking about them about perhaps doing like a housing project or something in India. I thought that might be kind of like an interesting type of project to ponder, with the company. So they're still kind of an ICO phase, but yeah, I looked that up, Gandhi. So I thought that was interesting. So, oh, battery's going dead. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. I think I'll try to. I got some things I'm working on my laptop. I've just been a little bit busy. So I got some video and things I'm cutting up. I'm trying to get it, trying to push some videos out. So yeah, I bought some Dropil. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all staying online. Catch you on the next one.